mechanics. So many have the reputation that seamlessly dovetail into similar conversations about used car salesmen. Well, I can assure you today's guest's reputation precedes him, as I heard how amazing of a human Marco Gerace was prior to ever meeting him. Over the last several months, we began an Instagram DM dialogue and have chatted at a few meetups where I took a chance on him coming on the pod. He obliged, and here we are. Me introducing one of the best-known Porsche mechanics in all of Southern California, and for good reason. TLG Auto is incredibly reputable, and his clients are everyone you probably follow online. Our conversation is full of heart, in my opinion, starting with some horological enthusiasm, followed by some meaningful family discussion, and of course some car talk. Today's episode is one of those that absolutely flew by for me, so please enjoy my conversation with Marco Gerace. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Yeah, buddy.
Hey man, how are you?
I'm doing well. I just looked at my watch. Do you ever look down at your wrist and just start smiling? You know?
Yeah, I do all the time, actually.
Well, I've been wearing this watch all day and I haven't smiled all day, but for whatever reason, I just looked down at it, as you were typing or what have, and I was just like, this thing is so great. Like,
What are you wearing?
well, I was just about to ask you, but since you asked, I'll go first, I guess, which is rude. I feel like that's rude. I can't go first. I'm the host, so you go first.
Well, I have so I know you and I went back and forth about the IWC, the new Ingenue, but
Which
I'm
we'll
not
talk
wearing it.
about. Yeah, we'll talk about that more later for sure.
I dug into my safe and I pulled out something I don't wear often, but it's a Tudor, actually. It's a Tudor Submariner.
Love it.
It's blue with blue dial, blue bezel. I don't know if you can see that very well.
So it's an older one, obviously.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't say kind of like mid 90s,
That's what it looks like.
my stuff. Which is kind
Okay.
of I sort of gravitate towards that. I got it from Adam at Menta Watches,
Sure.
and it had a case back sticker on it. I mean, the thing is so razor sharp mint that it's like almost a problem to wear it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna put dings in it. I'm gonna wear it and scuff it, and then if I have to, I'll fix it. Because why have it if you're not gonna wear it? And it makes me so happy because it's blue.
I'm so excited to hear you say that, and I wasn't gonna start with watches, but screw it. Let's just go down this path because I like change. You know, I couldn't agree more, and I've gone through a recent sort of consolidation myself, because well, twofold, well, threefold. One, I had a lot of kind of overlap, right? Like a lot of consistencies, good, too much of one thing, bad. And as a result, decided to move on from them a couple of pieces. Um, and because of the redundancies, I wasn't wearing them as much, right? So I'd rather have fewer watches that I wear more often,
Yeah.
to your
Quality
point.
over quantity. Like I think
Yeah.
it's funny. I'm going through that same thing in like a lot of areas of my life, and I know it's
Hmm.
cyclical, right? Like this is a very cyclical thing for me personally,
Yeah.
where I will lean it out for whatever reason. I'll just pare it all down to the bare minimum, and then I'll spend 2 years accumulating stuff. My
Interesting.
tastes change, my ideas change, life happens and things change, and what matters is more different or more important or less important. Life moves.
Yeah.
But like all things, it kind of is cyclical. You see these, changes in the economy, you see changes in the workflow, you see changes in popularity of clothing and what have you. So I find that I go through these periods of collection and reduction, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And you just start distilling things down, and after like two or three of those, you see which ones stick around. You see what you keep, and that's kind of like the core.
Have you found anything, I don't know, that has sort of kind of popped up as a quote unquote regret? You know how as you distill down, you can also say, oh shit, I kind of actually missed that thing.
Of course. I mean, yes. However, right? So in my case, I I I had a number of automobiles that I didn't have any place to put them. And so I started selling. And I had a bunch of money when I was left over. And it's much easier to store watches than cars. You could
Totally.
fit 50,000 watches where you could fit 5 cars, right? Like, I mean, it's just, literally a space issue. So
Mm-hmm.
I sold probably 4 or 5 cars in a period of time. And I
Mm-hmm.
bought a couple of pretty high value pieces. Um, the three of them that were the most high value were a solid gold. Excuse me, not a solid gold. It was a yellow gold black dial Submariner with hollow
Okay.
link bracelet. So late 80s, early 90s. I had a gold Daytona, yellow gold, black dial, yellow subdial on an Oyster Flex,
Amazing.
and I had an AP Royal Oak. And those were like the three heavy hitters in my collection.
Sure.
But I found I never wore the gold ones.
Oh, so you wore the Royal Oak.
I wore the Royal Oak a lot. I wore that to a lot of family events, and you know, it was at a time when I maybe needed to prove to the family that I was making it.
Yeah.
I'm an adult. I can.
Which is usually what a gold watch does.
Right, but I found that as much as I loved the gold watches, they were like beacons.
Mm.
And they
Yeah.
they got attention from not necessarily the wrong people, but at the wrong time. Like
Yeah.
it would peek out from under a sleeve or something, and it was like, dude, what is that? And I don't need to talk about this right now. We're not the right place or time. So in the end, what I ended up doing is I ended up selling all of those. To the Royal Oak and the Daytona went at a time when I needed to be liquid. And
Right.
they served their purpose in that regard. But man, I tell you, those are the two that I
You
made a
miss.
bunch of money on them because I bought in at the right time and I got out at the right time. But now that market has moved to a place where I can't afford to get back in,
Oh, I see. Okay.
and so they're gone for me. And
Yeah.
maybe one time in the future, after my kids are grown and off to college and I'm not putting money in a hole for them,
Mm-hmm.
afford to have it again. But for now, those are the two that got away. And the gold Daytona, the gold Submariner, I actually that's how I met Adam. I had bought that watch from Matt Farah, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I had it for a while, and I ended up selling it to Adam
Mm.
in like I traded and sold. So like I got from him a 167750
Okay.
that I absolutely love and a check, and it was like a really great trade because he got a watch that he could move. I got a watch I still have, and I've built a friendship and a relationship with him. And it's been great. So, it's not all bad that I had to let stuff go.
Yeah.
There's an upside to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple that got away.
Well, and I mean, on that note, like, okay, so you can't afford both of them, but maybe sooner than later, maybe you could just get one rather than both, you know?
I mean, look, it's not like I've stopped hoping or I've given up.
Right,
They're
right, right,
still
right.
on the list. It's just there are on the list of priorities, being that it's cyclical, that priority has shifted downward.
Yeah,
Other things have shifted upward.
sure. Well, I was going to ask you, like, what's another sort of, I guess, category of things that you've sort of reduced, but it sounds like, I guess, cars would have been that other
It's cars
category.
and watches.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
And people, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the Standard Age podcast.
I mean, hey, it's just, but honestly, that's a maturity thing.
Yeah.
Like people grow and change and move, and the friends you have when you're 27 are not
Mhm.
necessarily friends you're going to have when you're 37. You still like
Sure.
each other, but you just don't see one another anymore, and that's what I mean. Like I don't scrape them off. It's just, the space in my life is different.
Hmm.
So, no,
So I had the question written down to ask you later, vintage or modern watches, but it seems like you're almost kind of a neo vintage fan.
all of the above. I don't
Okay.
mind modern watches. I have had my fair share and still have a couple.
Yep.
I always, yes. So if we're talking Rolex,
Okay.
because we're always talking Rolex,
Sure.
I gravitate towards transitional watches. I like matte dials, but modern movements. That's just a personal preference. I like the durability of the modern, but I like the aesthetic of the vintage, and
Totally.
so 16800s, 16750, these really speak to me. The Tudor Submariner I'm wearing, quick set date, like all of that is really attractive to me.
So that's why the brand new Tudor that just came out, the sub. I mean, it's a modern sub without a shiny bezel, right? Like you don't have the ceramic bezel on there, but for all intents and purposes, it looks incredible. Which is actually how I prefer a sub to look anyway. So it's kind of the
Cool watch.
yeah, just no shiny bezel. Um, but
I
anyway,
have I have a Hulk, like when
nice.
I first started collecting watches, I shunned Rolex. Didn't get it.
Yeah,
Didn't understand. And everyone's telling, and this was back in the 90s, late
Hmm.
90s, early 2000s. All my friends who now have massive collections of Rolex that they bought for pennies, pennies. Yeah, it's horrible. They were all telling me, "Oh, you got to get a Rolex." I'm like, everybody likes Rolex. I like Omega. Oh man, I mean, I still do, but I
Sure.
missed the boat. Okay, I missed
Yeah.
the boat. And then when the boat started to sail away, they said, "You should look at Tudor." I go, "Tudor? Ah, you know, I'm an idiot. And I'll be the first to tell you I made a huge mistake by not listening and not paying attention to these things. Um, so yeah, I missed that. But I one day and tried on the Hulk, right? I was at a store, they had them in stock because that's what they did, back then.
totally.
They were
Yeah.
new. And I put it on, I was like, immediately, oh, that's what that's about.
Mm.
And I had to have it. I knew that was the goal.
So let me interrupt you for 1 second. Where is it that you're not listening, or do you find that you're a skeptic in general? Because, like, some of that could be skepticism, like, oh, I know me, you don't know me, or like, I know what I like and you don't know what I like. You know what I mean? Or is it just the journey?
It was
Okay.
me being a
Okay.
salmon. I swim upstream.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair
you
enough.
know, and the people who were telling me, it's like, also, I was in my 20s. Like, I know
Yeah.
more than everybody who's
Yeah.
45 or 50.
Can't tell you shit.
Not at 20 something, Now
Yeah.
here I am at 43 and I learned I don't know shit. And
Yeah.
now I can really learn something.
That's what I've always joked. I'm like, at 25, you know everything. And at 35, you know nothing.
That's right. That's right. And then at 45, you know what you don't know.
Right. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Which is equally as healthy.
Yeah, no, look, and again, that's the cycle. That's the cycle.
So what
So,
do you
so long story short, I tried this Hulk on. I fell in love with it. I started chasing it, and I told my landlord of my where my business is, and we were talking, and he's a client, and he's also a watch collector. Anyway, I was talking to him, and um, about a couple weeks later, he walked in and he gave me one.
Wow.
Like for just gave it to me. And I said, what is this? He says, well, you guys, your family has been in this building for 40 years, 35 years. And that's the kind of loyalty that we appreciate. And we're gonna repay it with this gift. So you don't have to worry about getting that. You can worry about saving to buy a building of your own.
Unreal.
It was really special. So that's the one modern watch that I still have on the Rolex side of things that I've kept.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool am
that
I,
doesn't happen.
like
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
doesn't happen. And so that's a forever watch. That
Yeah.
watch, no matter what happens, it stays. Family heirloom stuff.
Did you engrave the back of it?
Nope, fuck no. It's got to be able to be sold for money if things get real tight.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you look for when you buy a watch? Be it old, meaning vintage, or new to you, in the case of the Ingenieur, which again, we're going to talk about, but like just in general, like, are you a dial guy? Are you a case guy? Are you a movement guy? Which clearly you already said, like, movement's kind of, you'd rather it be more modern than vintage, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I like to take each one on its own merits.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't hunt for specific movements. I don't hunt for specific dials. I
Sure.
just whatever's put in front of me, I look at it. If I like it, I dig a little deeper, right? Um, for example, I think it's an Apollo 8 Omega Speedmaster. I believe it was Apollo 8. It was the carbon ceramic one, or excuse me, it was the ceramic one that had the like kind of it's not open worked, but it's got the bridges are engraved with the craters of the moon, basically. And the
Okay.
moment I saw that, I was just like, I need this. I don't know why, but I have to have it. And so I waited. I ordered it a year in advance. Like the moment I saw it, I had to have it, and I ordered it, and I waited, and it got here, and it's one of my favorite watches aesthetically.
Yeah.
I know that there are far better performing watches out there, but aesthetically, it's tough to beat.
Yeah, you and I are very, very similar in this regard then. I'm a completely aesthetically driven person because I mean, the material, I don't care what it's made of. I don't care how it runs. I don't care how accurate it is. I don't care about the finishing. If I look down to try to check the time and I don't like what I'm looking at, it's useless to
There's no
me.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
I used to buy like I've had a couple Ingeneurs, a couple of them.
Okay.
I had
Okay.
a Plastiki, which was fantastic. It was blue and orange, and it had this Genta inspired case that it had kind of gotten away from the Genta design, but it still had, this look about it that was bitchin', man. And I had
Cool.
been collecting Genta style stuff, the Royal Oak, and I'd been chasing a Jump Hour Mickey Mouse watch and
Yeah.
these other things. But the blue and the orange of that dot and the waffling of the dial, it's a kind of AP, but not really. And the only problem with that watch is it weighed 10,000 pounds.
Okay.
So I went out and got a rubber strap for it. And it was more blue and more awesome, but it didn't last forever in the collection,
Mm.
and it moved on. And I got, another Ingenieur. I got what is it, a dual chrono? I think it was and it was I think I want to say it was titanium. It was just big and it was
Right.
great, but it was big, and it
Right.
lasted a little while and out of here. Um, the new one, man, it's like the vibe. It's a real vibe for sure.
Okay, so you and I agree that the white dial and steel is the move.
It's the move. Yeah, it's the
But
sleeper of the bunch.
I just posted these photos of the titanium variant and I want to know your thoughts because we haven't talked about this one yet.
Well, so that's the one I wanted.
Okay.
That's the one I wanted. But Europe got it ahead of us by
Hmm.
like 6 months.
Hmm.
It's not supposed to land here until August.
Okay.
So in December, January, I bought the white dial.
Okay.
And it's different enough that I might keep both of them,
Okay.
but I'm definitely getting the titanium one.
I completely agree with you, by the way, having never seen the titanium. Have you seen a titanium in
No, not
person
in
yet? No.
person.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, you're going to be over the moon with it because I'm the white dial variant and the steel. A big, big fan. The titanium's borderline a different watch. Like it's just it's so the delta of the price is totally worth it. I totally understand it. It's not hype in the sense of ooh titanium, it's a cool material, blah blah blah. It for all I know, it probably is more expensive to make. I would imagine because titanium is probably harder to deal with. But it just I in my post I said this, so sorry for the redundancies, but like the dial furniture, like the indices and everything, they're all coated like with a black sort of surround to them. So they're not like black polished in the sense that in the right light they look black. No, they look black all the time.
All the time.
And it gives it this freaking depth, man, that's like unbelievable. And there's already a lot of depth, as you know, because you have the white one, that with that sort of checkerboarded, I'll call it for the lack of a better description, dial, there's tons of depth. But this is just like one step further in depth.
I like the whole line, the whole new Endure reissue,
Totally.
far better than the last redesign. I think the last redesign was a total dog,
Yep.
and I wasn't even remotely interested. But this, it's that Genta callback,
Yeah.
but the size of it. And I don't
Okay.
mean just dimensionally, I mean like height wise off your wrist. And the
Hmm.
weight that you carry when you wear it is reasonable, and the titanium is like half from what I understand. It weighs half as much as the stainless.
Well, and I'll tell you this, as somebody who traditionally doesn't like titanium watches because they're too light, I like a little heft. I find that this Ingenieur is like, it's like the perfect midpoint between saving weight but still feels like something's there. And
It's
So
incredible.
in that vein,
Mm.
that was my issue with oh gosh, the ceramic one, the ceramic big pilot, ceramic pilot that they offered, the Lake Tahoe.
oh sure,
So
Ceratanium.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Ceratanium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the ceramic version or whatever, they grow it out of like a pea. It's awesome. The problem with, or they know they grow it, they start with this and
They
it,
shrink it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. My issue with that watch was that it was so heavy for a ceramic watch. It was like, this should weigh half as much as it does. And it stands so tall off the wrist because the movement is so tall. Where, it's like, guys, what are you doing? Right? And I love the watch. It's like aesthetically, it's gorgeous, but it doesn't fit what it doesn't, it like missed the mark for me, right?
So the Tahoe that you looked at was probably the 43 millimeter, though, correct?
Well, that's the one I had. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, because I think my Ceratanium watch that I have is the 41 millimeter. So it's a little smaller. So it's not exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, the Lake Tahoe is like all white,
Yes, correct.
all white. And in retrospect, I wish that they had done a white dial with black numerals.
Ooh, reverse
It
panda.
would have
Or
they
panda.
they
Yeah, yeah.
they would have blown the market away. But the problem is they did a black dial with white, and it was just like, this is backwards. I love it, and I'm glad I had it, and I'm also glad it's not a part of my collection anymore. It just didn't quite work for me, and I needed to move it on to accomplish some other goals.
I see.
But so to the titanium Ingenieur, I think their movements from IWC, I think they were a little heavy, but in this case, it will aid the watch's wearability.
Okay.
It gives you that a little bit of heft. It's not too light.
It's perfect.
So that's kind of where my head is at with that watch.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you're going to want both to
Yeah.
remain.
Well, I'm gonna get the titanium one. I've been planning for it. I've been saving for it. It's
Cool.
part of the whole thing, and I will keep the one that I like best, or maybe both, depending on how it goes.
When you're shopping IWC, who's your AD?
Beverly Hills.
Okay. Yeah. Rodeo. Yeah. 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 Same.
It's funny. I walked in there and I happened to know one of the guys who worked there. He was a client of mine.
Oh,
I didn't know that that's where he worked, and then one of the other guys that worked there knew some friends of mine, and it just turned into like kind of this like family, this like really
Yep.
great comfortable atmosphere. And so I'm loyal.
I couldn't agree more. There's a very little known fact, actually. I almost worked for that store 7 years ago.
Really.
Yeah. So the funny thing, and I'm assuming you're referring to Haig and Youssef.
Mhm.
Yeah.
David was my client.
Okay. Sure. Sure. I was in between jobs, let's say. For brevity, I was in between jobs, and I was debating what to do. And I lived in San Diego. I really missed LA. I'm obsessed with IWC. It's my first love. So I applied and interviewed with Youssef, and they were going to extend the offer to me. And I had been dating this girl for, I don't know, a month, like 6 weeks.
This is going to the wrong place.
And I was like, listen,
I'm about to take this job in Beverly Hills, so I'm about to move away. What are your thoughts on that? She goes, well, I'm here to tell you I ain't doing long distance. Well,
Marco,
So
let
to
me just
pack your
tell
shit.
you. So
You say pack your shit, then let's go.
so we're married, and and I never worked for IWC. So that's I don't think I've ever told that story before, but
Anyway.
It's very similar to my life. So
kind
I
of,
get-
oh, is it? Okay.
well, my wife, when she came out of rabbinical school, my wife was a rabbi before she passed away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, when she was coming out of rabbinical school, she turned to me and she says, "Look, there are no jobs in LA. So are we getting married?" Because I was dating her at the time. Sorry, I was dating her at the time. She's,
Understood.
or are we not getting married? Because if we're getting married, I'll look for jobs in LA where there are no jobs. But if we're not getting married, then this has been really fun, and I'm going to start applying outside of California.
Sure.
I said, no, 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 we're in this for the long haul. And she ended up finding a job at a place. They made a job for her. They
No
created one
way.
out of thin air, and they kept her. Well, they kept her on staff, and so we got married and had 2 kids, and the rest is it. You know.
Wow. Well, I do want to talk about LA, of course, because I know TLG, I believe, stands for your dad and your mom's names, right?
Correct.
So they founded the business in 78. They're New Yorkers, right?
So my dad was born and raised in New York.
Okay, your dad was. Okay.
My mom was born in New York, but raised in California, and then went back to New York for a while.
Okay. So I'm assuming you were born in LA, given the fact that, okay. So you're an LA guy. Is there a relationship you have with New York now?
I mean, my family's back east, but they've all kind of scattered,
Okay.
like, as we all grew up and moved, they ended up in Jersey, Georgia, Iowa, like kind of everywhere, New Hampshire, Vermont.
Sure.
I mean, I enjoy New York. It's a fine place to visit.
Yeah.
Y'all
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
keep it though.
Yeah.
I don't need to live there. I'm fine.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I totally do. What's your earliest memory of being in the garage with your dad?
Oh man. That's a tough one because, I can I have there's a lot of pictures of me as a kid just like working in the garage with my dad, right? So I don't know if the memory is an actual memory of that or a memory of the photograph.
Sure. Makes sense.
I just I don't know. I guess I remember my dad. I went into the shop with him one day. I was, I don't know, 3, 4 years old. Um, and there was a motor sitting on a couple of crates or a piece of wood in the corner, and he needed to keep me from wandering off, right? So he gave me a couple of tools, a 10 millimeter socket and a wrench and whatever, and a coffee can, and he said, fill this coffee can with anything that this fits. And I came back to him like an hour later with an overflowing coffee can of nuts and bolts that did not fit the sizes of wrenches and sockets that he gave me. There were more, like it was what he gave me and more. And I took apart way more of this motor than he had anticipated. And so that's kind of the first sort of memory I have of working on something. It's mostly just disassembly.
Sure.
It's a hazy memory. It's a vague memory, but it's still one that I remember. And it was, in this back corner, next to an old Hazet toolbox that had like 3 tiers, that was it would extend. And that toolbox belonged to one of my dad's mentors that he worked with in the dealer. That when he
Wow.
retired, he brought the tools to my dad's shop and kind of worked part-time.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
Do you remember your dad's reaction?
not really, no.
Okay. Okay.
I remember that he was kind of shocked that I had filled this coffee can with stuff that didn't fit the tools I was given.
Yeah, it was either like, okay, where the hell do these go? Or, wow, job well done. There was an element of surprise, probably pride, and also, oh shit,
Yeah, I mean, I assume, I don't really recall, but I assume that one of the guys that worked for my dad had started giving me tools to work with. But,
Okay.
but I was 4. They had to obviously help me break some stuff loose and whatever. But like,
Yeah,
you could turn me loose on some things. Also, there were times when he would just give me a block of wood and a drill and say, I
Right.
need this filled with holes.
right.
I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, you said this sort of earlier, I guess, but so the business has remained in the same place the entire time.
no,
Oh,
third location.
oh, wow. Okay.
So in 79, when the business opened, it was in the back of like, a gas station has, kind of like a service shop.
Yeah.
So a couple miles down the road, there was a gas station with a service shop in the back. And that's where the business started. It was there for about a year. And then the property went up for sale and my parents couldn't afford to buy it. And so they had to move. And so my dad moved the business up to where the second location was, which is about, I don't know, 2 blocks from here,
Okay.
where we are now. But it was on a main street, and my dad was renting, if there's like 6 shops or 6 bays,
Bays, yeah.
he was renting 4 of them. 2 of them were storage, 2 of them were service, and then his buddy was next door on either side of him. So like he
Cool.
realized that what he was paying for, he didn't really need, because it was main street frontage, and that wasn't the business that he wanted to run, or that we needed. We needed a warehouse, we needed space that was cheaper and more of it.
Right.
We ended up where we are now. We've been here since about 87.
Okay. So, but it was this building that your landlord gifted you the watch from.
Correct. Yeah, it was this
Okay.
building that, like I said, we've been here since 1987,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
before the landlord bought it. My dad didn't buy this property. It was like the 90s, the economy was wonky, and the landlord wanted out, but the humble mechanic wanted it but couldn't pull it off.
Right. What's the ownership looking like now? Is it still the same guy? Are you interested in buying it ever?
I
you
I
own
have
it?
attempted to purchase the place, and he just laughs. He goes, "Man, no way. We own that thing so well that, like, no way." And he knows he's got me.
Yeah.
I'm just a paycheck every month for the place, so
Sure.
like
Yeah.
it's good. But we're friends. He's a client, and
Cool.
he knows that my ultimate goal is to buy my own building and move my business. And he's a real estate agent, so he is helping me look, keep my eyes open, and
Yeah.
the iron is hot. So that has been ongoing. It's an ongoing process.
So I guess the ownership would be the motivation, right? Is actually owning it. It's not anything other than an investment type of approach.
You mean to own my own building?
Yes, correct.
Well, I mean, it's like security.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without getting too deep down the rabbit hole, the short story is that, I can fix my overhead. Once I own the property, my rent doesn't change.
Right.
So, like that sort of security is important, and
Would
I want
you ever?
something to leave behind, like I've learned and I've seen and I've watched a lot of things happen in my lifetime as a shop owner, or as a business owner, and a mechanic, right?
Mhm.
I look at my father, who never unfortunately owned his own building,
Mhm.
right? And he passed before his time. He died of cancer about 7 or 8 years ago. And what did he leave behind? He left behind a couple of cars, the house with my mom, and his tools and his parts, right? Like there was no like structure that would generate income that he could retire on, that like my mom could retire on. Like there's just nothing.
Right.
And I watched his contemporaries, and the ones who owned the land are the ones who can retire,
Yeah.
put the tools down, and walk away at 70.
Right.
The ones who don't own the land end up being employees for the rest of their lives. And unless they're very savvy, it's tough to retire.
Yeah.
What do you have to show for it when you close the doors? You walk away with a pile of tools that you're too old to use, that aren't worth what they cost you.
Sure.
And who wants them? Other mechanics, maybe, if there's any left in this world. And your kids, do they know how to use them? Maybe. Who knows? Are they interested? We don't know. So
Yeah.
like for me, part of my plan, my long-term goal is to buy and own my own building where my business can exist. And when I'm 65, 70 years old, I have an option whether I want to work, or whether I want to retire, or whether I want to work part-time, or
Right.
whether I want to walk away altogether and collect rent, or sell it and live off the proceeds. Or but it's the word is options.
Yeah.
I've seen people without them, and I've seen people with them. I want to be a person who has them.
No, it's super smart. Super
It's
smart.
not. I don't consider it smart. It's like it's a necessity, man.
Right. Inevitable. Yeah.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. So
Your dad was a Audi Porsche guy, which obviously fell into your lap, clearly. Did you do any sort of like schooling to become a mechanic, or did you just learn by doing?
I did my time before the mast.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a slave ship around here. No, I never was like formally trained. Like I never went to, school for any of this stuff. I
Hmm.
learned under my dad, who was factory trained. He was a dealer mechanic, so he received dealer training, right? And he was very proficient in electrical servicing and maintenance and repair, gearboxes and engines. Those were like when he worked in the dealer, he was the engine and gearbox guy because he could hammer it out.
Cool.
Um, and he was after living through the 80s and all the Porsche theft and recovery and reassembly, my dad got, I mean, deft is the word I want to use. I think I'm using it correctly. He was deft at wiring, right? Like if you asked him what's black purple, he could tell you it's a tack wire, right? If it's what's red with an orange tracer, or brown with a white tracer, or green with white, like he could rattle off what circuit that was and what fuse number and where it went in every junction throughout the car. It was amazing.
So you could do it blind, basically.
Basically.
I do it blind. I'm
Okay.
colorblind. So, you know,
Oh, funny.
for years I had this, I've been saying, hey, come here, let me borrow your eyes for a second, but yeah, like, I mean, over time you gather it, you retain it. But
Yeah.
man, my dad took apart and put together so many cars in the 80s that he could tell you different years and wiring harness colors from like the early 60s to the late 80s. It's
Yeah.
amazing, you know.
Well, I know you sort of specialize in more of the vintage stuff, unless that's just what you love to work on, and that's all I'm kind of privy to. What is sort of the bandwidth there at TLG?
Well, I mean, I like we work on everything.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, we don't work on Panameras at all. No 924s, 944s,
No Tycons.
no Taycans, no none of the excuse me. The only front engine Porsches we work on are like Macans and Cayennes because I like those cars, you know. But we're primarily, 356, 911, 964, 993, 996, 997, 991, 992.
Oh, okay. So you
We
okay.
work on all of them. I recently bought a brand new Kiwis 4 scan tool. I can work on everything up to 24.
Wow.
So I don't advertise that, our I'm grateful that we are so busy that the quick service turn stuff doesn't come in because we can't get to it. I mean, we're 6 weeks out. We book 6 weeks in advance for service.
Wow.
So when you know, when new clients like, my oil service light came on, can you get me in? I said, in 6 weeks, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients who their car is here and they'll say, okay, when that one's done, I'm going to bring another one and swap it out. I'm like, okay, so like there's always something happening. I enjoy the old cars the most.
I was gonna ask you. Yeah.
It's where I mean, it's like my
It's what you grew up on.
Yeah.
really fun and comfortable for me.
Yeah.
But I have been pushing myself a little more personally on the late model cars, but really, I mean, that's where I'm learning more every day, the intricacies of it. But I love building motors and transmissions and stuff too. So
Cool.
my guys do a lot of the service stuff, and I do most of the gearboxes and engines.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you got rid of some cars. What were the ones you got rid of?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember anymore.
Oh, okay.
I mean, gosh, how long? It was a while ago. I had a 914.6 conversion car that I had for a long time. I had a 75 911 that I sold. I had a 85 Carrera for like a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I really wanted to own a Carrera. I've never owned one. I've never owned a 3.2 Carrera before.
Wow.
Finally bought one. It had all the service records and we've been working on it for years. And I laid out a bunch of money. I said, "Oh shit, I laid out a bunch of money. I'm not really comfortable with this." So I did some work to it, and then a client expressed interest, and so I sold it to him.
Good.
I made a little bit of money, but nothing really. It was more just like money in, money out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, those are what I can remember. I had Volkswagen in there at some point.
Sweet.
Yeah,
Do you gravitate to any particular color or spec?
No, but things find me.
Okay.
And mostly white cars have been finding me lately.
Okay, we need to talk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, so I have a 2023 718 Spider,
Sick. Yeah.
and I woke up one day and knew it needed to be red. Needed a guards red Spider. And everyone said I was crazy. And so I went through the configurator and I was like ticking boxes, and I always kept coming back to red. And I don't know why. It was the color that spoke to me the most. I mean, I could have had blue, green, yellow, whatever, and
Yeah.
the $0 option of red, you know. Um, and then I finally found Gemini blue. And my dad's car that was recently sold was Gemini blue, and it looked really good on the Spider, but then PTS went away and it was no
Oh.
longer an option, and I was back to red. So I got my first and only red car.
Black wheels.
Nope. Nope. Silver wheels,
Amazing.
black door handles, though. I'm really proud of that.
Okay.
Really proud of black door handles.
Kind of like an 80s spec, I guess.
Well, so that's the thing. It's a throwback, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it also kind of works with the belt line of the car.
Okay.
There's like little trim pieces that are black throughout the car.
Yep.
And when you look at it on the side, it's a slab of red. And then there's this black thing right in the middle. And it really helps break the lines up a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good. Or break up the slab and give it more depth and more of a line. That's what I've been very happy with that car.
That's the daily then?
No,
Oh, okay. What's the daily?
Passat.
Really?
Yeah, white Passat.
Heck
It's
yeah.
a white car.
What year?
2016.
Okay, so that's like a, I don't know what B whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
be a car. I don't know.
Six, yeah.
I had my wife and I, we had just had our child, and we had a GTI at the time,
Sweet.
a white GTI four
Of
door.
course.
But when you have a kid, it's just like way too much stuff. And so I told her, like, look, let's just trade this in and put down nothing on this 0% financing Passat, right? She's like, okay, whatever. And we got it brand new, and it has 97,000 miles on it. And I just had the whole suspension redone, and I serviced it, and the thing handles so good.
Great.
It brakes great. It runs, gets 40 miles to the gallon or 35 miles to the gallon. I mean, the thing's a rocket.
The best.
The best mileage, and I love that car so much. I don't drive it nearly enough.
I'm on my fourth Volkswagen, my second GTI. It's a 2017, and I have a $122 on the odometer.
Wow.
I do a lot of driving.
Good driving car, man.
Yeah, it's sick. I love it. 6-speed, of course.
So mine was a DSG because the wife refused to learn to drive stick.
Mine's the same way.
Yeah. I tried to teach her. She just like, "Here, stop yelling at me." I'm like, "I'm not yelling, I'm whispering." Because I didn't want to yell, because I really wanted to yell.
Well, yeah, yelling isn't a volume thing for them. It's a volume thing for us.
I told her, I said, look, you can't break the thing.
Yeah.
You can't break it. Don't worry. Just don't hit anything.
Right.
She was so mad. Stop yelling at me.
It's a stadium parking lot. There's nothing around us,
Exactly. And she'll find the pole, though. She'll find that light pole.
So you've never had another job, I take it.
No, I've had many jobs.
Oh, what else have you done?
So I graduated from college in 2001
Okay.
with a degree in journalism and a minor in psychopharmacology.
Wait, so you graduated early?
No,
Wait, you're 43 and you...
4 years in, 4 years out.
Wow. Okay, so you must have been young for your grade then.
I was always the youngest.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because we're the same age, but I graduated in '02, but I'm 44.
Okay, so yeah, I graduated high school in 1998.
Same.
I went off to college right after, and I was out in 4 years.
Great.
So, you know what?
Yeah, the math's not adding up.
See, I was there, I swear. Yeah, I drove home from DC in June of 2002. That's what it was.
Where'd you go?
American University.
Oh, cool. Nice. I had a friend that went there. That's cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty good school. I mean, I was just content to be done.
Yeah.
I have no ties to the school. I have no friends from college. I worked in a record store for 4 years or 3 years when I was there. Um, I started at UC Santa Cruz, and then I transferred.
Wow.
Yeah, but school was just a means to an end. Like I don't know what I was doing
You're supposed to go to school, so you went to
so I
school.
went exactly.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I actually did learn quite a bit, and I use that every single day. It was
Really?
through us, yeah, it was through osmosis.
So you're the one.
I'm the one. I don't know which one, but I'm one.
The one who learned something in college and uses it every day.
Well, you know what I learned? I learned how to communicate. I was a
Okay.
journalism major. So I
Okay.
learned how to write and I learned how to read and I learned how to seek knowledge and I learned how to read between the lines.
Very cool.
Most of my clientele are very educated, well-to-do, and I'm a grease monkey really, but I can communicate very well via emails and in person, and I can hold a conversation, and it's
Hmm.
a lot different than my father, who wasn't that guy.
Got it.
Nothing wrong with it. It's just he came up a different way.
Great mechanic. Bad business.
Terrible at business. Great, the best mechanic I've ever met, but terrible at business.
Got it.
But he knew what he was good at.
Hmm.
He excelled at it. So anyway, yeah, I went to college and I came out and I needed to do something. So I went and I wrote for the Daily News, the LA Daily News
Wow.
here. And then that was miserable. I freelanced during that time. I did some work for Pete Stout at Excellence Magazine,
Cool.
and I wrote for Rod and Custom Magazine when it still existed.
Okay.
And so like I'm published and did some stuff and kind of proud of it, but the funny thing is like in hindsight, the relationship I built with Pete at Excellence or from our meeting at Excellence has
Yeah.
really just turned into a great friendship.
Cool.
Business, we don't really do any business. I give him money every month for 000.
Yeah.
Like other than that, he's just a great dude who's been a confidant and someone I can bounce life questions off of. So, I got that out of it. And after I left the magazine or after I left freelance writing and um, Daily News, I worked at a company that sells aftermarket motorsports parts.
Okay.
And I'm not proud of where I worked, so I'm not going to say the name, but I worked there for like 9 or 10 months. While on the weekends I was working at the shop. And so when I quit that other place, I needed more income. So I started working at Fox Sports Radio.
Okay.
And that became like primary source of income. And I worked there for like 3 or 4 years.
What'd you do there?
I did editing. I edited sound. And then I started running the board for various on-air shows and personalities.
Wow.
And I was working like overnight shifts and then coming into work at the shop during the day. And so I was working, I was burning the candle at both ends.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
And I parted ways with Fox and I ended up at ESPN for a year. And I ran Clipper games and Angel games and more shows and stuff. And it was fun and it was great. But like I had this sort of come to Jesus moment where I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Am
Huh.
I am I gonna do radio or am I gonna do mechanic stuff? Because I was doing both. And I was like, well, these hours suck at the radio job, and also like in radio, you can have a job on a Monday morning and have no job on a Monday night with no warning whatsoever.
Really?
Oh man, it's
Super cutthroat.
dude, it's scary. You watch people come in and do their job and you say, all right, I'll see you tomorrow, and you never see them again. And it's really scary.
Wow.
I can't live like that. So I started working at the shop full time, and I just left the radio stuff behind.
How old were you when that happened?
23, 24.
Oh, wow. So it was quick. Okay.
But well, when I made the decision, sorry, that's when I started like working here. I actually made the decision to go full time at the shop in 2007,
Okay.
2008.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just sick of like working overnights and holidays and weekends and like missing my friends and all of our stuff. Like I just, yeah, it was enough.
Yeah, totally. Man, that's crazy.
That was a long.
So you worked in a record store. I was going to ask you, like, what was the first concert you ever went to?
Oh, Green Day.
Sick. The Dookie years.
Dude, it was the Dookie tour.
Yeah.
I saw Green Day at the Olympic Velodrome in Orange County, and I was 14, and it was awesome.
Incredible. I'll never forget. Yeah, I think it was my 15th birthday. I got that from my best friend, and his mother was like, "Should we be buying this? Like, it's called Dookie. Like, it was one of those things." And I'll never forget that birthday present. And they just, now they do that punk show out in Vegas. What is it called? The big, where like Blink 182's there. It's like a
Oh,
not where are they now, but it's got some lame name.
big headliners just last year they did it.
Well, so Green Day did like either a private show or a small show or something on the heels or, bookending that big, huge concert festival thing. They did like a club, and it was to celebrate the anniversary of Dookie, which I guess is now 30 years old. And I know.
30
Uh,
years ago was 1970, by the way.
But yeah, exactly. Always. And so, if you're interested, go on YouTube and you can watch the whole show, and the sound's pretty decent, and they just literally play the album start to finish,
Wow.
including the hidden track at the end,
Yes.
which I will literally randomly sing in the kitchen. And it's now to the point where my wife sings it, having never heard it, and she was singing it this morning.
I remember hidden tracks.
The like I was all by myself, like that.
Oh, I know the song, but like I haven't there's no albums anymore.
I
So like
know.
hidden tracks are a thing of the past.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, I was going to ask you, like, when your dad was working, was he a headphone guy or was he playing music or was it silent?
K Earth 101 on in the shop. Then it was
Okay.
K Earth 101, KLOS,
Nice.
97.1, KLSX, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a radio shop.
Amazing. That's great, man. So what are you listening to now on Spotify then?
Oh gosh. Honestly, there's a lot of Avicii. My daughter loves Avicii.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Well, what a tragedy that was, man.
I
Gosh.
know, right? It's really sad.
Yeah.
I also listen, I'm a dad. I'm a single father of two kids. So my son listens to meme music, stuff that's like in the background of memes that he hears from his friends at school, not on the devices that I let him watch.
Right.
So this is a new scary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my daughter, she likes it's Julie and the Phantoms, which is sort of like a Netflix for kids
Okay.
show. And it's really good. It's entertaining, you know, or Zombies from Disney, you know, she likes
Okay.
Zombies soundtracks. Um, Personally, I'm an oldies guy. I listen to
Yeah.
like the stuff my dad listened to, Tom Petty, Huey Lewis and the News. I
Yeah.
also listen to Tool.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
You know, my taste is very eclectic, but in the car, most of the time, it's Avicii
Oh, that's cool.
or Tantrums.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's great. How do you feel fatherhood has changed you?
Oh God. Um, it's well, it's a that's a loaded question for me.
Yes.
For me, I was a shitty dad for like 2 years when my son was born. I was there physically, but I didn't get it. I didn't understand what it really, really meant to be a present fatherly person and a loving dad.
Mm-hmm.
Going through the motions, thinking I was all in, and I love my son and I
Of
love
course.
my daughter. Um, I carry a lot of personal guilt for
Mm.
my shortcomings that I know about. He'll never know, but
Right.
I will know forever. And so, um, yeah, I mean, I got into therapy and with my wife, and we had marriage counseling, and I kind of realized that there's a spectrum of emotions,
Yeah.
and that talking about things is a healthy thing to do. And I just became a more well-rounded individual, and I really learned to see my children in a different light, my son especially because my daughter hadn't been born yet. Um, and I appreciate him as a person and his and what he was experiencing in the world. Um, I missed a lot of firsts because I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
You know, I got him on film, but I didn't get it. That
Right.
first taste of ice cream, or spaghetti. It sounds so dumb, but like I got to experience it differently with my daughter. I was more mature with her.
Did you catch that on film or no?
My daughter,
Yeah,
I think we have it somewhere, but I don't go back to that like I go back to the ones with my son because I missed it.
I see. It's the iPhone at a concert. You're not watching the concert. You're making sure it's framed.
No, no, like
Okay.
I was just emotionally checked out.
I
Like I was
see.
elsewhere. I was very much in my own head and in my own world. Um, so I go back to it to try to like make up for it. I don't know.
I see.
Like I said, it's hard. My wife passed away back in October.
I know. I'm so sorry, by the way.
Thank you. The growth that I've had to do, the growing that I've had to do in the last 6 months
Hmm.
far outstrips any personal growth that I've had to do in my life up to this point.
I don't doubt that.
I mean, it's about learning. It's a whole new type of patience, a whole new type of conflict resolution, a
Right.
whole new type of survival, from day to day. I am perpetually tired. Um, and I'm not allowed to be anything other than like perfect dad. Like obviously there's times when I'm not, obviously, but I understand how much more everything I do means to the kids now that their
Hmm.
mom's not around.
Yeah.
So that's been heavy and hard.
How old are the kids now?
My son is 8 and my daughter is 5.
Okay, so it's not a ton of hand holding, but still hand holding, right? Like they're not three, they're not
No,
two.
in fact, I think it might actually have been easier if they were younger
Interesting.
or much older.
Okay, well, sure.
The age group, the ages that they are, my wife was sick for 4 years with cancer. And so my daughter never really knew mommy healthy. My
Right.
son did.
Right.
I, there's this really deep sadness that he feels for the time that is lost. My daughter, for her, it's sort of a natural progression. Yes, she misses her mom, but not as much as my son misses his mom.
Right. The iterations.
Hard to quantify, hard to define, but you can feel it and see it.
Yeah.
Um, and I just have to realize that we all are dealing with this and we're all carrying this weight in different ways and experiencing this in different ways. And I just need to, I need to lean on my family for help. My wife has a huge family and every one of them steps up. My
That's
mom, my
nice.
mom and my family also step up huge. I'm not alone in this and it takes a village to raise a kid, but like it really, really takes a village,
Sure.
especially when you're alone. So
Well, I'll be honest. There's no doubt in my mind, not blowing smoke, that you're probably knocking it out of the park. And the fact that these other people are also contributing, um, may actually just create a very well-rounded appreciation for family as your two kids through their eyes that like
they've been around.
Potentially I didn't have.
growing up, right? Like I knew my family, but I didn't have the same experience of aunts, uncles, or grandmother being right there, being very supportive. Like I saw my grandparents, I don't know, two times a year, three times the holidays,
Right.
right?
They
Like
live
that's what
far away, right?
Not really. I mean, 2 hours, like not crazy. I mean, I drive to LA all the time. It's 2 hours, you know what I mean? So it's like, in hindsight, it's like, damn, dude, I wish I'd spent more time with them because my grandfather was like my hero. Like the time we did spend together was just unreal. But I still wish it were more, And so with your mom, especially, right? Like they're going to know their grandmother probably far better than I ever knew mine,
Yeah, I mean, they see her, a couple times a week,
That's amazing.
1 or 2 times a week,
That's great.
Almost every family member gets a day. And it's
That's
helpful to me because childcare, man, like, let's be honest, call
crazy
it a spade a
expensive.
spade, right? Like it is helpful to not have to pay a nanny 2 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Totally.
But also, like, these people are not just now coming around. They have been in the way for the whole time. Like, they're always in the way. Like, I remember when we first started dating my wife, it was like, there are too many people here.
Okay.
There are far too many family members. Like, a, a family gathering is 60 people. Yeah.
Wow.
And because it's not just your immediate family. It doesn't work that way. It's the cousins who bring their significant others, who bring their kids, who bring their parents. And I mean, when I say it takes a village, it's the whole damn village.
Yeah.
It's intimidating, impressive. So we are surrounded by support and love, and it's great. It really is. Like, obviously we miss my wife. She left
Yeah.
a hole that can never be filled, but in her absence, people have come to aid. It's great.
That's really special, man. I'm actually quite happy for you for that.
Thank
That's
you.
really
I'm
nice.
lucky. I'm very lucky.
To have a horrible segue back to cars.
Okay, it's all right. It's all part of it. It's a
Um,
family business.
So I'm curious, like, what is the typical conversation when somebody comes with their car to your shop for the first time? Especially like an older car. Like, is there something that, I guess maybe a better way of asking this, is there something that you're like significantly known for that it's like, oh, well, you got to go see Marco?
I don't know, man. I try to keep my ego in check. Like, I I've gone through a time when I thought I was, king shit of fuck mountain, and I realized that is not the case.
Okay.
Um, I learned a hard lesson. Um, and luckily I learned it early. I learned it in my 20s.
Okay.
Um, so when someone comes to my shop, I always just try to find out, how long have you had the car and what are you going to do with it? Why do you own this thing?
Okay.
How are you going to use it? Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Try to figure out who you are and what you got. And then we can help you get where you need to go. Like, are you just going to flip the car? Or is it like, are you just biding your time? Do you want to make memories with your family? Do you plan to drive it across the country? Is it a race car? Like, what? Everybody has different reasons for things and different, ownership experiences that they want to have. Um, I just try to make sure the cars do what they're supposed to do the best that they can. And sometimes that means doing nothing to a car. It's like, hey man, look, this is what it needs eventually. But
mhm.
right now it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
Like, the moment you take the lid off that can of worms, you're in for 10 grand. Like, I'd much rather see you put 600 miles, 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles on the car before you spend that money. You just spent 50 grand. Like, I know, okay, you just spent 50, what's another 10? Like that, a lot of people have that mentality.
Yeah.
They've built that into their budget, but like, sit on the money and drive the car and take a pen and paper or your phone and make a list of shit that bugs you, you know? So like, there is no answer to the question you asked.
Okay.
Sort of like, again, everything like the watches, you take it on a case by case basis. You look to see what someone brings you. You ask about them, who they are and what they're going to do with it, right? And you just try to get it there, so that the car does what it's supposed to do every time, you know?
Well, I really got to say, man, that's a really special answer, only due to the fact that you said there is no answer. But I can for sure tell you, I've never heard somebody say, what are your intentions with this car? Like, why do you own this? Like, I've never heard that in my life. That's incredible. And that's probably exactly why people go to you.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, what am I known for? I'm known for knowing my way around carburetors and fuel injection, vintage fuel injection.
Okay.
I have a lot of parts and I have a lot of experience and burns on my arms and fingers from getting that experience,
You took the heat.
literally.
Yeah.
I've made a lot of mistakes, you know.
What's the most expensive mistake you've ever made?
Ooh, I could drop one on you that's real bad.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so I was building a motor for a guy.
Apologies to the owner in advance.
No, I won't name names. I won't name names. So I was building, well, there were two, and it all happened, man. When my dad died, man, I took a beating. I took beating after beating after beating just to make sure that everything was perfect for the client, right? Cost me a lot of time, a lot of money. And what I learned in that first year has served me so well. But there are two very specific examples that I could give. The first one is, I think it was Luft 3 or 4, the one that was the first one at the port.
Yep.
Client brought his car to me, and we were going to do a 2.4 engine to a 2.8 twin plug mechanical injection motor. Okay. Had it all mapped out. And I went out and I had a set of old Andile 2.8 pistons and cylinders. We did the whole motor. How did that go? I did the whole motor and put it in the car, and the rear main seal leaked. And I don't mean it leaked a little. I mean, it puked oil like I didn't put a seal in. So I pulled it back out, and the seal had pushed out. I said, what the hell is this? So we redid it, put it back in, did it again. Pulled it back out, looked, so what the hell is this? So we sealed it up with goop, right? Took that seal out, and this motor's in and out, in and out, in and out, and it's oil and it's labor, and so put it back in and gooped the fuck out of it and ran it, and it still leaked. So I pulled it back apart, and turns out that the seal, the place around the crankshaft, we call it the seal area, was oblong. It wasn't round. So when the case was machined, they didn't check for roundness there. Anyway, so I had to take the whole motor back apart and send the case back to the machine shop. Went back to the machine shop. They did what they did, and they fixed what they fixed, and they machined that area and whatever. They lapped it again, brought it to realign, board it, and I told them, just take as much as you can, right? No, well, you get to a point where if you take too much, then the bell housing doesn't fit on the back of the motor anymore, right? So you can only take so much. So anyway, got it back, put it together, and it leaked. Now, it's just twice I built this motor,
Right.
okay? And it leaked for the second time. So I called them and I ranted and raved, and they said, well, what are we going to do? I said, oh, I'll fucking figure it out, right? So I don't even remember what happened, but I took it back apart, cleaned everything, and I stuck it back together, and we sealed the fuck out of it. The motor started, ran, was dry, and within 5 minutes, it went cack, 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 cack. This motor was perfect. It just leaked. What the hell is going on? Took the motor back apart, and what had happened was it had spit out a wrist pin clip. I was working so fast that I didn't get the wrist pin clip seated all the way into the piston, and it spit the clip out. The wrist pin walked out and scored the cylinder. So I now had no pistons and cylinders. Luft is a week away.
Oh my God.
And this motor had to be done. The guy was flying in. He had to have it to get to Luft to then take the car and do the thing, right?
Oh, so he had shipped his car to you all the while.
He was out of the country. He worked for a major corporation, and he was traveling with Formula One.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
He was a wig at a Formula One company. So he was coming back to do his plane was booked. Everything was booked, right? I mean, he lived in town, but still, like, he was coming back for this, and then he was going to leave again.
Sure.
So I started making phone calls. Anybody got these pistons and cylinders? And I found a buddy of mine who had a set, and I was like, can I buy them? He says, no, they're not for sale. I said, you're not listening to me. Name your price, and I will pay it, whatever it is. So he goes, who's it for? And I told him the story. He goes, how much? He's like, just take them. We'll figure out a price. I said, okay. I think I paid him, I don't know, $6,000 or something like that for the pistons and cylinders. They're not available anymore. He had the last set in the country. So it was, I don't know. I think it was like I had the whole motor apart. I'd take the whole motor apart and start over. This was, I think, the third time, right? And because I needed to make sure I found the wrist pin clip once I figured out what happened, and it was in the sump, hooked around something, and I couldn't get it out. So I had to take the whole motor apart, clean it, and start from zero. And so I got these pistons and cylinders on like a Tuesday, I don't know, at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I set to work and I built this whole motor by 10 p.m. that night. The next morning, we put it in the car, started, it ran, it was dry. We road tested it, dyno tuned it, and made it to lift. But that
Wow.
cost me three engine rebuilds, right? I got paid for one, so it cost me two for free, and I had to come up with a set of pistons and cylinders. And then I had to take that one that was damaged and I sent it out to have it reconditioned, and I ended up having that for and I was able to sell it to another client years later, who, that's the second nightmare. That
Oh
motor,
my God.
that motor I had the machine shop do a bunch of work to it, but they didn't crack check it, and it had a crack at one of the main studs. And I built this whole motor, and it poured oil out like I left a fucking bolt open.
So the piston is cursed, and we still work with this machine shop, or no?
You don't know it's a curse until you use it, right? So I mean, it was my fault that it spit the clip out. It was my fault. Like I was
Sure.
working too quickly.
Now the bore scoring is what you hear about too with the 996 or indoor 7 and stuff. Is that, but that's the same thing?
Totally different. Totally.
Okay.
In this case, the wrist pin walked out and put a slice in the side of the thing. We didn't run it long, but long enough to damage it. And we're taking it apart. You're like, oh, there's the noise. Now what the
Mhm.
problem is I can't find this clip. I need to find it. And it was like hooked around a windage like brace that was, or not a windage, but like a stress strength casting in the case. So I built this second motor, made it a 2.8, and it puked oil out of this stud hole, but it wasn't the stud. It was the case was cracked like
The
down
crack.
in a casting hole area. I called him. I said, "Hey guys, we got to crack check this stuff." They said, "Send it back. We'll fix it." But okay, send it back. And I expected them to clean it and weld it. Now it's magnesium. It's hard and dangerous and sketchy to weld. That's what I expected. They said we fixed it. They shipped it back to me, and it was like cut down and grooved and filled with epoxy. And I'm like, okay. So I put it back together. The fucker leaked again. Well, it's not my fault, but
You're
so
responsible.
that
Yeah.
was the last time I used that machine shop ever again.
Right.
But in the meantime, I had to come up with another engine case. So I had one on the shelf that was done and ready to go. Now, unfortunately, it's not the matching case of the guy's car anymore, but his case is a boat anchor. Couldn't be
Okay.
fixed.
Right.
So I took his motor all the way back apart and transferred everything over to my engine case and built it back up and sent it. And that motor's still out there running.
Wow.
Those are the two that hurt the most.
Yeah. God, that's brutal, man.
Yeah. And
But
I had an issue recently, but that's a learning curve issue.
Yeah.
So that was
Okay.
on me. I was building a motor, but formula that I've used many times, and I
Okay.
changed one ingredient to that formula, and I had to take the motor back apart to make changes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Part for the course.
Yeah.
Why do you hate the 250 limited edition American 993 Roadsters?
Never met one that wasn't a lump of shit.
Okay.
Either maintenance deferred to the point where they're falling into the ground, they're just rotting into the ground, or modified beyond recognition and they're unreliable and they're terrible.
Okay.
Just never met a good one.
Okay. Opposite end of the spectrum. What's your grail car?
Gosh, 962.
Oh. Why?
Take that back.
Okay.
I'm gonna take it back. I think it's the Gunner Racing G93. So that's the Grail car, but it's based on a 962, so they kind of fit.
Okay.
Why? because it's the fucking coolest car I've ever driven in my life.
Oh, so you drove it. Okay.
Got a chance to drive one. You know, I was in the right place at the right time with the right friends.
Where were you?
I was in Florida
Okay.
and I was invited to participate in a place by people who I am grateful to call my friends. And I got an opportunity to drive a historically significant 962. Man, one, I wasn't, I mean, by any stretch, I was not the fastest guy out there. I wasn't trying to set any lap records, but I got into boost and I got to feel what those brakes felt like. And I got to drive it and I understood how these cars won Le Mans so many times. It was so natural feeling. It was as much a 911 as much Porsche. The feel of it was so Porsche, but it was easy to drive. It was just very comfortable and easy to drive. Now I wasn't going 220 miles an hour down the Mulsanne Straight in the night with the rain, but like you could, I mean, you get it. Like you drive the car and you're like, aha, it's an aha moment. That
Wow.
did that for me. And the 993 GT2 was the same way. It was an
Oh, wow.
aha moment, you know, where like literally the light bulb, oh, that's why this car was so good, you know.
Wow.
But Grail car 962. Yeah.
Marco, this is fun, man. I could keep going, but we got to give our listeners a break at some point as well. So,
Okay. I probably got to get home and relieve the nanny. She wants to go home.
listen, man, thank you so much for doing this. It's great to catch up. Really enjoyed seeing you at Adam's event, of course, in LA, and hope to connect again when I'm back up there. I really thank you again for doing this also via Zoom, because I definitely want to come by the shop and check it out. I wish I could have made that happen today.
It's just a
But
dirty shop. You're not missing anything.
life happens. Oh, by the way, real quick, what's up with you sharing cars with Adam? Don't you share a car?
One car.
Okay, okay,
A great
okay,
story.
okay.
It's a really great.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about it because I did mean to ask you about that.
10 or 12 years ago, I get an email from a friend of mine down in Orange County. He says, I just sold a car to this wonderful lady. It's a 912, 1969 912, and she lives up in your neighborhood and she's having some trouble. Do me a favor, just do whatever she needs, fix the car and bill me. I said, no problem. She comes in and this car is gorgeous. It's a 1969 Bahama, I want to say it's Bahama yellow, but it's actually sand beige, 69 912, black plates, light restoration done a while back, just real honest 4-speed car. And she was the nicest woman in the world. And we got to know each other. I did fix whatever it was, billed the guy, got paid, and off she went. And then she would periodically come back in and she was driving the car daily. And I said to her, I go, look, you know, I love this car. I love working on it. I love driving it. I love seeing it. It makes me happy. If you ever want to sell this car, you let me know. It's a standing offer. She says, okay, I don't plan to sell it. I said, I don't want you to sell it. But if you do, just make me your first phone call. She said, no problem. I stopped seeing her for a while. Turns out, you know, she stopped driving the car. She parked it. She got another car, got another job, whatever, but she kept it. I would see her every couple of years. Then one day my phone rings. Marco, so-and-so, I'm moving. I said, where are you going? She said, I'm moving to New York. Show's coming to an end. I'm looking for a new gig, and I think it's time to go back to New York. I said, okay, we'll see you later. And she says, well, I don't want to take the car with me. Do you want to buy it? And I said, worst timing possible.
Of course.
I wasn't liquid. I didn't have enough money. And it's the kind of car you don't let go. You just don't let go. And so I called Adam and I said, hey man, got a great car here, you know. I will partner with you on this car. You just pay for half. And he says, well, what's that mean? I said, that means that I work for free and you pay for parts. He says, done. And so we bought the car. And, you know, it had been maintenance deferred because she wasn't using it much.
Right.
And so it needed all new suspension, all new brakes, and a tune-up. And so I did all the work for free. Adam paid for the parts. And now we have a black plate 69 912 that we share. And so when he flies out here, he doesn't have to rent a car.
Incredible.
It's a great car because it's super fun to drive. It's great on gas. You're not going to see yourself if you drive somewhere. You know, it's like, it's very
Right.
unique.
Right.
He had it up in Pebble last year, and he just had so much fun. He loves it. He wants to send it to Florida, and I keep telling him not going to happen. But I can't say no because he owns half. Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really wonderful car, and it's got a half-inch thick stack of registration stickers on it.
Oh, sick.
A point of pride for me.
Yeah.
It's been continuously registered since 1969. It forces you to be present in the moment and look around, because nobody sees you.
Right.
Nobody sees you.
Right.
You got to see them.
Yep.
When you're on the freeway and you're going 60 in the slow lane, who gives a shit, man? It's great.
Totally.
You watch the world go by.
I know Jerry Seinfeld loves the 912.
It's fantastic.
That guy's driven everything.
Yeah, he has. He has. I mean, look, I've got a ton of Porsches. I've collected many over the years. That's one of my favorite ones.
Sweet.
It's not fast. It's just fun. It's a smile mobile.
Well, it's the smile for miles. And also, drive a slow car fast rather than drive a fast car slow. Yeah.
It doesn't go fast.
Yeah, it doesn't go fast anyway.
It doesn't go fast. Like
it might feel fast.
You drop it out of an airplane, like that's how fast it'll ever go.
Yeah. Listen, man, thank you so much, dude. This was super fun.
Anytime. This was a great time. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, brother. Okay.
Adios.
Bye. See ya. This wraps up this episode of the Standard H podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show, as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.